today, MaryTatem.
Keep your weapon at your side.
And I see the parallel of how the process of quilting kind of goes along with the way God works in our lives.
Pierce the darkness with the light as you go along, living with one foot in heaven, breaking the enemy's power. In the strength of Jesus we can stand in the darkest hour, living with one foot in heaven, ready when he calls our name. For believers to live is Christ, to die is only gain.
Hello, I'm Patty Webb. Welcome to Heritage of Truth TV. We have with us today MaryTatem. She has written a book, The Quilt of Life, and we want to talk to her a little bit today about what motivated her to write the book and some interesting things about that book and how it applies to our spiritual lives. So welcome, Mary. It's good to have you today.
Thank you.
Tell us what motivated you to write the book.
Well, I am a quilter. I'm not a wonderful quilter, but I do quilts. And I see the parallel of how the process of quilting kind of goes along with the way God works in our lives. So that sort of motivated me to do something that was a devotional that would make us understand God better.
Oh, wow. There was a lot of history woven into that book. Was there a favorite history story that you'd like to tell us?
I just love the story. It's kind of a tragic story, but it's a wonderful story about the bride that had gone out to the well during the Revolutionary War to draw water to wash her hair for the wedding, and she was scalped by the Indians.
Oh my goodness.
But because of that, the revolutionary people got so angry that they raised a lot of troops, and that we were able to win a lot of battles after that because we had more troops than we'd had before, weren't so outnumbered.
That happens often, something tragic,
Yes.
and it does turn out
Yes,
in the long run for a greater good.
That's
sometimes. You talked about, the book is mostly about quilting, but there's a lot of other crafts like knitting and things like that that are making a comeback. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a pull to back to the way things used to be, so that we have a sense of self-sufficiency, and there's satisfaction in crafts. Any kind of thing, sewing, quilting, knitting, there's a sense of accomplishment because you see a finished product.
Yes.
And I think that's probably the reason.
I think it also kind of draws us back to our roots.
Yes.
And you know, in the past we have a lot of Christian heritage, and I think that is something that, you know, pulls us back to our roots also.
I agree.
You mentioned earlier that quilting and some of these crafts give us a deeper understanding of God. Can you give us an example of that?
Well, we look at scraps. We make a quilt a lot of times out of scraps, just pieces of fabric that are too small to do anything really with, and yet we feel that way about our life sometimes, that we've just messed up so bad and our life is just one big scrap. But we know that God can take those scraps and make something beautiful out of them, just like we can make something beautiful out of scraps into a quilt.
That's beautiful, yes. I can also see how there is quilting at all different levels. You know, you see a lot of beginners who do very simple quilts. God can use us to do simple things, and then as you gain more experience, a lot of times the more intricately, you know, designed quilts, you know, can be done by a person. I think, you know, the more we exercise our Christian faith, the more God's able to do with us, the more, the deeper He can take us and some things like that.
That is so true.
How do you think we could use quilting and other crafts to share the gospel?
Well, I think if you teach somebody to quilt or teach any craft, as in the process of teaching, you can point out the parallels to how God works in your life. It really is a good tool.
Yeah.
I think there's a story in one of my books, and I don't remember it for sure, where a couple of young girls used that as a mechanism to bring one of their friends into going to youth group with them and finding out more about Jesus.
Oh, yeah. We have several, in my area, there are several churches that have quilting circles, and they make quilts and send them to missionaries or make different things, you know, to take as ministry projects.
Yes.
And it, you know, gives people a time to come together and share scripture. It gives them a time to pray together. It's just a very, it's a time when people can experience some fellowship and camaraderie in the Lord. So
there's really uniting of friendships over quilts.
There was a story in your book about a little girl named Jasmine. Something about her picking up threads. Can you remind me again of that story?
Yes, she wanted so badly to quilt with her mother and her friends when they came over to quilt. But her mother wouldn't let her do that. Her job was to go down on the floor and pick up all the threads that had been dropped during the quilting bee. And she didn't like doing that very much. No. She really wanted to sew. But her mother said that she had to learn how to handle a scissors better and everything before she could actually cut the material, and before she could sew she had to learn how to handle the needle better. And the spiritual application of that is that God knows when we're ready for the harder jobs too, and He may keep us picking up threads for a while until we're really ready to do the things that require a little bit more skill.
Oh, that is
good application.
Yes, that's a good example. Thank you. What's next?
Well, I would like to publish a novel.
Oh, wow.
I finished writing one. We'll see if it makes it or not.
Oh, great. The book
and the heroine is a quilter.
Good, okay. Oh, the one book that we were talking about today is in here. One of the things that I liked about it, and I shared this book with my mom, it has so many quotes. There were so many things that I heard my mother say. It'll never be seen on a galloping horse, and some things like that.
That's one of my favorite stories. I love that.
Yes, it was very good. I noticed that you had a couple of other books also.
Yes.
That were published earlier, so maybe if someone looks up your name, MaryTatem, they can find the other books.
That's right.
Do you want to share that? What is the name of the other two books?
The other books are the Quilt of Joy and the Quilt of Faith, and they're all the same in as much as they're based on stories. So they're just full of fun stories that comfort your heart or touch your heart.
It was really nice because the stories are short, and you can just pick them up and read them one at a time. It's not, you don't feel like you're picking up something really heavy, and yet there is some good inspirational thoughts in there. So
yes, and there's a good application to daily life in each story.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you with us, and we look forward to the novel.
Well, thank you. I hope it happens.
Okay. See you next time.
For believers to live